Hello, divine, beautiful souls. This is Energy Speaks podcast with your host, Catriel. This season, we're going through the Zodiac Energy Empowerment Series and interviewing our different practitioners in the series. Today, we have our online Leo class practitioner, Sue Smith from Glastonbury, England. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So in Leo class, we're doing painting. And Sue is a painter and does other beautiful things. I would love to know a little bit more about your journey.
About my journey to becoming a painter or a spirit on earth? Which journey?
Well, let's start with Spirit on Earth. And I
Gosh, that's
feel that
interesting.
will definitely bring up some painting.
I wish I'd have said that now. A spirit on earth. How funny. What was I thinking? Um,
You're in the heart chakra of the world. What else?
yes, I am in the heart chakra of the world. Um, so funny. You know what is interesting about being a spirit on earth? Is the embodiment of the spirit in the human
Mm,
body. And that's actually, funny enough, ties in to how I got to be where I am now.
mm.
Because I quite enjoyed being a spirit, not on earth. And I didn't quite get what this place was about. I was like, makes no sense to me. And and then in I think 2017, I had a car crash, which put me in my body quite firmly. And I was really, really, really fortunate to have people around me that kind of nursed me through a kind of broken neck and a broken back.
My God.
And one of the people that helped was Leo, and she was absolutely exquisitely beautiful at holding the brokenness without making me feel broken.
Wow.
And she actually taught me what it is to be embodied, what it is to be in the heart,
Mm,
what it is to be as opposed to do, because I was a really great doer, and what it was to be in a body at one with the body.
mm,
And that was kind of my rebirth into a new beginning in a totally different relationship with what it is to be a spirit on earth.
wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. Very
Um,
fortunate.
have you, I'm curious, have you always lived in Glastonbury?
No, I was born in Yorkshire
Okay.
and kind of lived there for about 21 years, and then moved down to London,
Oh,
and then I
okay.
moved to California, and I lived there for about 7 years. And then you're like, I didn't know that. And then I moved back to the kind of coast. And then I had the car crash back in Yorkshire when I was deciding where to live. And then in part of that healing journey, which just kind of culminated in the final seventh year, I ended up in Glastonbury in the heart chakra of the world.
I'm that's exactly I'm like we're going directly into the heart here for this class. And I it's so funny, it was so obvious, but like and maybe I probably had this thought before, but it just makes so much sense why you're this practitioner. Like I'm like, of course, heart chakra of the earth, and you know, uh, you're a painter. So how we met,
Mm,
I'm gonna bring that up a little bit.
mm,
Is I I wanted to go to Chalice Wells. I do. I'm an Orasoma practitioner, and um, throughout my journey, I had um, two mentors. Her name Judith Hitchman and Robert Brown. He was from England, Tetford. Um,
oh, yeah.
I don't even know if I'm saying it properly, but um, uh, they always, because of the Orosoma, talked about chalice wells because part of the bottles is made up from the waters from chalice wells. And I ended up, going this summer, uh, to the chalice wells, and I had to go back for my birthday trip.
Mm.
And like it's a Shabbat. I'm like, okay, I want to have a holy Shabbat. I want to like walk around, and I want to go there for, um, you know, to meditate and everything. And so it was so funny. I wanted to make sure I didn't have like a transaction on that date. And I pre-planned everything, and then I found out I could be a companion of the well. And I was like, what's that? Like, yeah. And then, of course, on the Holy Shabbat, I'm looking at this artwork, and I'm looking at your artwork, and I was like, oh my gosh, when it was like worlds collided, and when we started to talk, because at the end you offered me literally the piece I was looking at because of
Mm.
all the Hebrew. I was like, where is this coming from? What? Like, huh?
Yeah.
And we ended up in a beautiful conversation about Shabbat. And Sue, is a painter, a Kabbalistic painter. And, me being from Israel and my deep connection with Sfat, I was like, you have to go there. You don't understand. And so it was so beautiful to see these, like this connection point, like just how it unraveled. So I'm very grateful, and it's led to this now moment, which is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Was
Oh
meant to be,
wow,
wasn't it?
it really was.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so okay, you're in Glastonbury.
Mhm.
What has your journey been since you've arrived in Glastonbury?
Since I've arrived in Glastonbury, what's my journey been? Well, I'm gonna rewind from just where you said when we
Okay,
met because
yeah,
of the Hebrew
please.
letters, because it was because of the Hebrew letters, I didn't realize it, that I would end up in Glastonbury.
Mm,
So, um, I was well, kind of still am, I guess, a druid, kind of esoteric druid, right? So they did an awful lot of, working the chakras, a lot of ancient wisdom. And part of that ancient wisdom we were learning Hebrew. And I had I was absolutely fascinated by the letters, right? And I was they were quite intellectual in the learning. And I said, well, we should paint them, because if we paint them, then we'll embody them, and then we'll experience them, right? Anyway, so the class didn't want to do it, so I thought I'll do it on my own. And I started to paint. Hey was the first letter. Bear in mind, I don't know a massive amount about the letters. I'm just
no, it's
absorbing
okay.
myself into them, right? And then I did Shin, and then I did Bet, and I finished base, how you would say it. And then 2 days later, I had the car crash. Now, in between that, I'd bought a
Oh,
piece of jewelry from Israel, Kabbalistic jewelry, which was the Tikkun key. and, and then poof. And it was actually the letters that kind of got us together. And it was the letters that brought me to the well. And so what's been happening since I've been at the well? So I came to Glastonbury because of the well, because every time I travelled here for healing after the crash, I would always experience a miracle. And I actually started by channeling Joseph of Arimathea, which thankfully at the beginning I didn't know who he was. I just started painting him. And um, we had a big conversation at the wellhead. And it was like this 2 hour long conversation. And this is what made my miracles. A woman appeared and stood at the entrance to the well. And then a guy sat opposite me like a knight, its energy. and we were sat there for 2 hours. Now, if you've been to the well, you'll know that the footfall around the well is like every 15, 20 minutes it moves. So to be sat there for 2 hours straight, the height of traffic on a Saturday was really quite amazing because nobody else was there whilst we were meditating. And Joseph was actually sharing a story of how to empty the heart of history. And so
Man's name was Joseph.
yeah, so hang on a minute, where's the little camera? No, I've got to work the opposite. There we go. So there he is, look. Hello. Very friendly
Wow.
chap. All right. Anyway, he he's actually, I didn't know, but he's a major influence in Glastonbury. He came and he planted the staff on Wiriel Hill, right?
Right. You're talking about
And
Joseph of Arimathea.
yes,
Got it.
so
Okay.
he was the one having a conversation with me at the well, but he
Got
was
you.
teaching me um, the very core message was empty your heart of the past, let the future be new, and let the heart hope again. And he showed me this image of this character. I was doing storytelling at the time, and the main character in my story he used as the character for his story. And so this character had a black box, and it was filled with experiences. And he would show me an open door, and it was always a beautiful sky, beautiful landscape. And then the character would pull out an experience from the box, look at it, and then walk through the door, holding the experience. And whatever he was holding, the landscape would change. So if he was holding disappointment, the clouds would go black, the sky would
Wow.
kind of get heavy with rain, the atmosphere would get dense, and you emptied this place of from potential joy into this landscape of disappointment, right? And it just kept happening with each experience that the character picked out in the black box. And he was really talking about the fact that the pain of our past experiences we often carry with us into the new, and we repeat the experience. And so he was saying, and so the character then started to throw the stuff in the air, and it got carried off by the wind, or he put it into the water and it got flown away, or he buried it, and flowers would grow. And it was just this idea of whether it was betrayal, disappointment, loss, anger, resentment, didn't matter what it was. Once it was released, joy was the step through the door, and this
Mm.
completely new world was upon the people that walked through. And so he began this massive journey of how to empty the heart,
Wow.
and how to start anew. And then from there, I just I I mean I painted Mary Magdalene.
Hmm.
And when I started to paint her, my mum started to die at the same time.
Wow.
And it was amazing because I didn't know. I just started sobbing. And I thought, why am I crying? And it was like a really heartfelt sob. And I just thought, what is going on? And then I think a day later, my aunt called me to say, your mum's had a stroke. And she was alive for like 3 days after the first stroke and then the subsequent strokes. And I'd never really encountered Mary's energy before, and she just held me in this motherly love whilst my mother was dying. And in fact, for a long time afterwards, the painting, it changed over time, and it became spiritualized because, I mentioned that I didn't like being in a body. And then I had a car crash and then I got into a body. I didn't really like doing emotions that much. I didn't like feeling things that much. And Mary, when I painted Mary, was very different to when I painted Joseph, because Joseph was get out the way, I'm going to come through. It was very masculine spirit, bang. And Mary was no, no, no. You come to me with your emotions, and if
Mm.
you haven't got any, then don't come to the canvas. And
Wow.
so I painted through the grief with Mary because she wouldn't let me paint it any other way. She was like, I am here to remind you of your humanness.
Mm,
And
wow.
so that was this journey of painting Mary. And then one day, these marks appeared on the canvas, totally unmade by me. And she became spiritualized. I can't think of a better word for it. And anyway, sometimes her hand would come out of the canvas, and I'd be like, uh-oh, what emotion am I not looking at? Because I'm about to feel it. And so they began to be the guide. And then Yeshua came, and then Melchizedek came. And then the real work began, which was then to paint the letters. So that's
Wow.
when I started painting the Zohar and capturing the felt sense. Um, and then I started to paint the 72 names of God.
Wow.
So that's what's been happening since I moved to Glastonbury.
That's incredible. Something that we've never actually talked about that you mentioned though, um, uh, uh, Druidry.
Mm.
Um, what, first of all, what grade, are you?
I don't know if there are grades in the order that I'm in, because
Okay.
it's they do they're very disciplined. And
Yeah.
in fact, the one of the original druids of that order also set up homeopathy in England. And
Okay.
so a lot of the new homeopaths who would later create the first colleges in the UK were from that druid order.
Wow.
And so,
Um,
yeah, it's steeped in that kind of esoteric
okay.
wisdom.
So I'm part of a Druid order as well that comes
Mm.
out of England. And
Ah,
I started my path, I believe it was in August. And but it wasn't until I got to Glastonbury that I fully initiated myself.
oh yeah.
You know the what was super weird being WIRD at night, it was I think it was that after that Shabbat, I think that night it was that I actually walked out going towards the tour. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's like Archangel Michael's tower. That is an incredible place. I didn't know if I was gonna go all the way to the tour because it was like really dark. Uh, and
Yeah.
but it was kind of like the thing that I needed to do. Even though I had to walk through this path and I was told not to have my light on,
Ah,
and just walk. And so I get to, you know that, I know there's different ways you can go up, but you know the one where the uh, grove is.
yeah.
So I went in through that entrance, and I didn't know there was a grove. So I initiated myself through this process, calling in, the directions and everything, um, and doing my thing. And then I was guided to walk. I was like, your soul is just like saying, walk over here. And I walk and I walk and I realized and I looked up and I said, I think you're in the middle of a grove right now. And so I like tuned in. Can I use my flashlight to figure out where I am? And so I put up the flashlight and looked, and I'm standing in the middle of a grove.
Ah.
And not far over is the tour. And I'm like, wow, that's magical. And it was so funny because I thought that when I was in Glastonbury, that maybe I would be able to, connect, with some type of druid ceremony, get
Mm.
connected with somebody. And so it didn't quite happen. But when I left and went to Northern Ireland,
Mm.
um, I happened to go to the sacred tree, where my friend works, that's actually the teacher for cancer. Her name is
Ah,
Bernie. We were in conversation and they were doing their like or maybe it was the opposite actually. It was I think I might have done this first. I gotta look back at my trip. I think I did this first. Um Time's funny, right?
yeah,
Um
it bends itself, doesn't it?
it does, it really does. Uh I actually ended up doing a druid ceremony um for Samhain there actually. And I think that's what actually activated me to go do my my ceremony by myself, which was super
Mm.
interesting. And so like I did not expect that to happen in Northern Ireland. I kind of expected if anything were going to happen in Glastonbury. So it was
Mm.
actually the more communal thing that happened in Northern Ireland and the more personal um happened in Glastonbury. That's super cool. I'm obviously on my Bardic grade right now,
Ah,
um, and you know it was funny because part of my projects this year for myself, you know, was to create talisman kits,
ah, yeah.
um, and as part of like my I don't know, a newer art project for myself, you know, and putting all the different elements together for someone
Mm.
to create a ritual. And
Mm.
it was a lot of work, and there's a lot of, you know, magic that goes into it, you know, and what blends and the herbs and all of these different things. And
Yeah.
you know, no one told me to do any of this stuff. It was just kind of like this is what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can totally get, you know, like, wow, and you went directly for the names of God.
Yeah, like, oh,
Like,
initiation. I mean, it's interesting Glastonbury because it is, like when you said, I thought it would be the other way around. Because Glastonbury, like the tour for me is like the crown chakra. Because of course, once you walk up there and you get a truth that only you can know, and then by the time you got down to the bottom, life is changed. And Glastonbury seems to be such an intimate conversation with spirit that it tends to be a singular journey rather than group because miracles happen here all the time. I mean, like before I moved here, I could guarantee. I mean, I literally came down. I'd go to the well. I'd go up the tour. I'd go to the well, and then I'd go into the shops, get some crystals, and it was kind of the way I always did it. And but I would meet uh, the people that I would meet, the conversations that I would have. It was literally like the creator just went, oh, she needs to know that. Tell her that, and that was kind of how it always went.
wow.
And so when I'm at the well and I'm watching other people have those experiences, I just smile because it's just the way it is. Miracles just happen all over the place.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, it's such a beautiful space. And you know what? I found something out on my journey.
Mm.
I think it was the first time I went
Mm.
that it's Glastonbury is the New Jerusalem.
Mm.
That is like
Mm.
one of the things they say. And I'm like,
Huh.
makes so much sense now. Because like me being, you know, from Jerusalem, I'm like, okay, why do I always feel the need that when I'm leaving Israel, I have to go to the UK? And before I go to Israel, I feel I have to go to like to the UK. It's like that is the
Mm.
bridge, and the heart is the bridge.
Of course. Wow.
Uh, it's absolutely amazing. Wow. So, um, with with your homeopathy,
Mm.
I would love to know more deeper, like how, you know, how you got into that and how you know, what codes you received from Glastonbury, like all, you know what I mean? I don't know how to ask that question, but I'm like sending that to you energetically, if that makes sense.
How did I get to be a homeopath? Um, well, the short answer was I. I met my soulmate. I got the life lesson that you normally get when you have your soulmate, and I was heartbroken. And I was extremely fit. I was doing triathlons, and I was working out at home, and I collapsed on my exercise bike. And I was really quite lucky because obviously in the UK healthcare is free. And I went to the hospital and I said it's not normal. Um, and had ECGs and fitness tests and everything came back normal. I said, no, there's something wrong. So they did an ECG for like 24 hours. And
Mm.
a colleague at work said, you thought about going to a homeopath? And I didn't even know what that was.
Wow.
And um, I went, all right, I'll give it a go because I knew something was wrong, but medical science couldn't find anything wrong. And I knew my body enough in terms of working out what it could do because it was separate from me at the time, what it could
Yeah.
do and what it couldn't. And so I went to see this homeopath, and he quite quickly observed, because I was quite good at hiding how I was feeling, um, that I was heartbroken. And he gave me a remedy. Uh,
Whoa.
and I think I had a migraine following it. And then the heartbreak was gone. And I realized that I
Whoa.
stumbled across magic. And so um, that began a journey where I became his patient, and then people would start talking to me a lot about their stuff, and then I would just refer them to him. And then he used to smile because a lot of people would come to talk to me, and he kind of said, "Well, but I get paid for them to talk to me, Sue." And I was like, hmm. And then I got to the point where I wanted to be able to create, offer help that wasn't just listening, although I'm a massive fan of the power of the witness. And I believe that the first healing is always being witnessed in whatever the experience is. And anyway, I can't remember why I started to study what there was. It must have been a catalyst, but I can't remember it. And then I started to study, and I think I'd been studying for one weekend, and then the clients start to come. I'm like, no, 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 I've got 3 more years of study. And um, my partner at the time, I went to Portugal, and I was told, take these remedies, and they were all the remedies I had for acutes, right? So if I had a cold or whatever was going on, that's what I was prescribed. And so I took what remedies I was told to take with me. And anyway, the mother of the person I was with, her mum had this itch under the skin, which is actually a very ancient disease. And the doctors couldn't find anything, nothing helped. And it'd been going on for a year, and she was quite miserable about it. And I was so excited because I just studied something, and I know what that is. And I gave one of the remedies that I was told to bring with me, which was serenum. And I gave her the remedy, and the itch went straight away. And so then I had like 20 people queued around the block going, can we see her? And I was like, I've just started studying. Anyway, then I got support to from a qualified homeopath so that I could basically start working straight away whilst I was studying. And I was very blessed because um, I didn't really know it at the time how intuitive I am. Um, but I had the ability to kind of read all the different timelines, right? So,
Mm,
the thing about homeopathy is it's not treating a symptom, it's treating the root cause, right? And we understand that part, right? Oh, okay, great. We're wanting to heal why that's out of balance, not the out of balance part, right?
yeah.
But sometimes the out of balance is can be a past life experience, can be a birth experience, can be
Oh,
something that
wow.
you don't even know has happened to you, right?
Yeah.
It can be those emotions that you have learn through your bloodline not to express. And
Mm.
the suppression of that is causing the imbalance. And so there's an inability to necessarily go with it and be in flow when you haven't had any mirroring of how to do that.
Yeah.
And so I was fascinated by this system of giving light to allow you to receive more light, because that's all it is. It's just a little mirror that says, hey, you're out of balance. Oh, I didn't know that. And then it corrects itself. I mean, my job is just to go, huh? In a way that
Excuse
doesn't
me.
disturb, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. I would love to actually know more about homeopathy. My friend Andrea, she's been, starting to take treatments in regards to homeopathy, but I've gone to herbalists, but I've never
Yeah.
been to a homeopath.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So maybe when I go to Glastonbury again, I'll give you
Yeah.
the date later. Maybe I can come see you.
That'd be awesome.
Um, and um, that's so like, did you start your homeopathic journey prior to the car accident?
Yes, I did. And I was very
Mm,
fortunate I did. I think
yeah,
um, I don't know how long I was a homeopath before, was it about 6 or 7 years? I was extremely grateful for knowing what I knew.
yeah.
Because it was one of these weird, proud moments. Like I'd just literally been cut out the car. I was unconscious on impact. And then they they cut me out the car and put me in the ambulance and said, "Who do you want to call?" And I remember calling my mum saying, "You need to get me some arnica and some aconite and whatever." And I was like, "How did I know to do that?" That was a level of shock that I could say, "Bring these remedies with you." Um, which is bizarre. But it was really, really useful because uh, in I used to listen a lot to Gangaji and that kind of Papaji movement thing. Well, it's not a movement, a spiritual um, teachings. And they used to talk a lot about when everything is gone, what remains, right?
Mm,
And it's like, if you're not a father, if you're not a homeowner, if you're not the boss, if you're not this, if you're not that, if you're not, what remains? And for the most part, it feels like it is very much a theoretical exercise. But I was literally pulled out of everything and went, now what remains?
mm,
And um, I was depressed, um, but that would be quite normal because I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything I couldn't even take a shower on my own.
oh my God.
And so I was faced with a question that was reality.
Mm,
And um, I thought, okay, I don't want to take a drug to suppress the depression because depression is a normal reaction to life changing this drastically. Um, but I do need something that allows me to express the grief because most people were quite overwhelmed with the fragility of what it is to be human.
mm,
So they were therefore they'd either project their unprocessed trauma or they just kind of run away screaming. And so I asked this question of spirit: when everything is lost, what remains?
mm,
And I discovered it was the immutable spirit.
mm,
And my personality, you can destroy it. Yes, you can. This life, this identity that I have about myself, yes, it can be um, battered and diminished and destroyed by things. But my mutable spirit will live on.
mm,
And so I ended up doing my first painting, which was actually the first line was the immutable spirit. And then on top of it, I painted the devastation on the personality.
Wow.
Um, but you asked about homeopathy, how that
No, it's
links.
okay. I actually was
No,
sending you notes to kind of go towards the art, which is beautiful. Like I
well,
was
we have
literally sending that to your higher self, like,
keep
huh,
going.
keep
So
going.
yeah, so that was how well, because in homeopathy, right, there is something that if someone can speak it, they've
Mhm.
healed it. And so the throat
Mm,
chakra is a massive aspect, that Venus, the compassion of Venus, to, whether we are repressed in relationship, that we can't feel we can speak our truth, or we've got a boss that's kind of dominating, or we have a trauma that we have too much shame and we can't speak about. The minute we've released it, it's no longer inside us creating an imbalance.
mm,
And so I was using art as my witness. And I needed a
mm,
witness to say, this is bad, this is life changing, and you're going to be okay. And I also needed to be honest about what it felt like to not know who I was anymore,
mm,
and to begin this exploration of um, how I become a spirit on earth. Because, ironically, because I had done my best to not be in a physical body and not experience the emotional pain of what it is sometimes to be in um, situations that we can't escape.
yeah.
So that's how the art came. And through that period, I was really, really lucky because um, the depression would sometimes, because they had PTSD, would sometimes flare up in suicidal thinking. Now, thankfully, because I'm a homeopath, that's kind of normal, right? It, we got this idea of sometimes we don't want to be here. Sometimes um, m- m- the idea of killing yourself is a relief, right? It's
Mm,
not necessarily an action, it's just a way to gain relief from pain. But I was really fortunate because I understood when I went, oh, okay, how do you want to kill yourself? And I'm like, oh, I want to jump out of a building. I'm like, well, what's okay? You're facing financial ruin. You're actually doing gold, which is a remedy. Or I go, God, I want to shoot myself in the head. That's all right, Sue. You just had a head injury and you're doing nature self, because that's what we do, right?
mm.
So I would literally be going, how do you want to do it? And then I'd look at my life and go, that's a normal response. Now,
Wow.
if I didn't know about homeopathy, I don't think I would have survived that time, because I wouldn't
Wow.
have understood what was going on. I'd have thought I was
Yeah.
going mad, when in fact, all I was doing was seeking relief from an extreme situation. And I just had to look at what was the extreme situation I was facing.
Yeah.
And that made it, it helped me make sense of everything.
Wow. That's that's incredible. Going with so because I'm still getting to know you,
Mm.
is threads part of
Yes.
that homeopathy
Yes.
and art?
Yeah, so what happened was I had the car crash, and I was at home when I had the car crash. I just moved back from St. Leonard's, kind of near Brighton, that kind of down the coast. And I was
Hmm.
working out where I wanted to live, and I was starting life again. And I was at my parents' house. And um I hadn't realized the abuse in my childhood. Didn't know it. It was just
Mm,
normal, so I wasn't aware of it. And I was aware of passed on trauma. So the unprocessed trauma that just gets passed down the bloodline, right? And I was very conscious that my mum had experienced some very difficult emotional challenges when she was younger,
yeah.
some of which she didn't recover from. And I was very much aware that I was carrying some of this burden. And anyway, because I was creative, I thought I would literally weave her history so I could see it. So these threads of the disappointment and the betrayals and all the different experiences that she had. And
Mm.
then I was going to, so in homeopathy, there's such a thing called a timeline, right?
Okay.
Now, it's interesting because it talks about it when you're learning it, it talks about it as a linear path. But of course, time is not linear. So, anyway, so what you're looking at is, you might have had a birth trauma, or you might have had a big disappointment when you were at school. You might have been humiliated. You might have had um, a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a partner that didn't treat you very well. You might have experienced disappointment, there's loss. Anyway, anything that essentially you you found traumatic that you didn't have the resources to respond to with love. Okay.
Mm.
And so the timeline is really, it's tracking these experiences. And then as a homeopath, my job would be to look at which one was alive, which one had
Mm.
energy, which one was stealing your energy because you were still
Interesting.
in that moment in time, right?
Wow.
And so because I'd had the car crash, I was at home, I began to understand my own history more. I wanted to go back in time and heal my own history. And I thought the best way to do that would be to literally reweave the timeline. And so I mapped my history, my mum's history, saw how they were meeting, and it began this journey of because I used to teach homeopathy before the car crash, and one of the things that I taught was breaking new ground, and breaking new ground was born because one day I kind of did experiential learning, right? Because I think the
Mm.
best way to learn is when no one knows what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And so let's discover together. So we were learning about the timeline, and someone said, yeah, but how do you know what to prescribe on, right? Because if you've got somebody who's had a very traumatic history and they've got like 15, 16 things in their history, you know the remedies can go back in time. But when do you begin, right? Because sometimes the
Mm.
most immediate trauma isn't the one that you need to prescribe on. So you might have somebody who has a very abusive boss, right? But the trauma is actually when they were humiliated at school on their lunch hour, right? And that's what you're going to prescribe on, not the boss
The
right
root.
now, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you throw an anchor back in time and you miss it or you get the wrong one, yeah,
Hmm.
either it just doesn't do anything, or uh, you're a little bit slower in doing the job of allowing the person to heal, right? So
Yeah.
the question was, how do you know which trauma it is? And so I said, okay. And we got people kind of in a room. It I didn't know about constellation work back then, but it's a little bit like that, but it's not. Because constellation work tends to go back and then give it back to one ancestor or another. And this wasn't necessarily about returning it to a source. It was seeing how the person was holding the trauma. Now, what
Mhm.
was fascinating, so I asked this one person, and we had a small little intimate group, and so we knew each other really well. And I said, right, what were your 5 traumas? And so she named them, and I said, okay, you stand over there, you be that one, you be that one. And then all I would do is I'd go to the person who was being the trauma, and I'd just gently push. And if they moved quickly, I said, you can sit down, because they weren't alive. That was just a trauma that they knew, but there's no energy in it. The trauma
Mm.
that was alive was the one that when I went to push it, it went, excuse me. And I was like, that's when you prescribe on, right? Now, what's interesting is that when somebody speaks, they will tell you which trauma is alive because energy will be in it. And so,
Mm.
um, what I was looking at in my own timeline was where was the energy alive and how could I bring it back to me? Because I needed all of the energy to heal.
Wow.
So, um, threads is is a culmination of the 7 years of understanding all the ways in which we lose energy, and the most healing way we can bring it back to ourselves so that we can essentially live our life mission.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. Wow. Um, I, I definitely would love to do that at some point. Wow. Um, we're gonna slightly transition into what we're gonna be doing for Leo class.
Mm.
I feel like there's probably some connection point with that.
Yeah, there will be a connection point with that. Um, well, we know that Leo is the heart chakra, and we know it's um, as we are transitioning into this age of Aquarius, right?
Mm,
It's all this heart opening. How can we be humans together, experiencing this world, bringing in more spiritual light so that we can shine,
right.
that we can be shining spirits? And I think that we all have um, dreams of how we can share our heart with the world. And sometimes we kind of hide the light of that dream, even to ourselves. And sometimes we limit it to what we think is possible. Um, and sometimes we block it by not thinking that we're capable of having a big dream. Um, but and don't cancel it out with a but. Um, there is so much, if you think about the love that we have to share with our immediate families or immediate group of friends, it's the beginning of our heart expansion. And what we're wanting to look at or kind of explore is in that safety of other people doing the same thing, expanding what it is that the heart can bear to witness, to expand, to create.
Mm,
Because anything that has any meaning in the world is created from the heart.
agreed.
So that's where we're actually saying, you know what? Wow, aren't we amazing? Let's see how amazing we are. And you know what's brilliant is when I work with people one on one, the medium of paint or pastels,
Mm,
um, there's this kind of energy conduit between us and spirit, that when we say we don't know, and spirit goes, oh, I'll show you. And it completely transforms what we think is possible by showing us something quite unexpected.
mm,
And sometimes creating art is from the heart, right? I mean,
mm,
art is, Brian Rittenberg says that an artist is just somebody who shows you their heart, so you know yours, right? And that's kind of what I'd like it to be, is this
mm,
idea of sharing a heart in a group so that we can see each other's heart and give ourselves permission to shine it more brightly.
mm. Love that. Wow. I'm very excited for this class because I really feel like we're going to be going deep into maybe things that um, we have not confronted and allowing those to be expressed so that we can actually get to the Emerald Heart.
Yes.
Um, I'm very excited. And uh, I just want to double check. This is what I have down for what to bring to class.
Oh, yes.
Um, and so just for everyone, because like unfortunately I can't bring your materials to you. I mean, that would be a great magic trick though.
That would, wouldn't
Right?
it?
Bam. So what I have here is bring yourself
Yeah.
several sheets of paper, a wide selection of acrylic paint that you love, brushes, like paint brushes,
Yeah.
cup with water, and pastels.
Yeah.
Does that feel accurate?
Yeah. I mean, what I would probably do is like
Mhm,
with the painting, with the paints,
mhm,
um, if you've already set the intention to come to the class, then once you've set that intention, go to the art shop or wherever it is. And if there is a color that your heart goes, ooh, that's a nice color, pick it. Because the heart kind of knows what it wants to express before the moment of asking,
Yeah.
right? It sometimes needs its own little preparation. Um, and we might for speed because we're not going to be looking at creating a pretty picture, right? The idea is not to create because we want it to look good. It will look good because we've created it, right? And it will have its own magic because we can't have imagined what it was that we were painting.
Yeah.
But let's say if we explore what might be blocking the heart from saying that, then you can imagine the kind of colors and the feelings
Mm,
that is is that block. And we might be doing that with pastels first because um, usually there's a harshness to a block. But
mm,
we want to expand out into the expression and the tenderness of what the heart might need before we can express what's really inside it. We will probably be using paint because there's a fluidity in the water that becomes this conduit into gifting us this kind of spiritual blessing. Um, and sometimes um, you can bring glitter. Do you know what I mean? You can
yeah.
go, what does my heart want to play with? Because if we're expressing the joy of the heart, and let's say we discover something that was painful that needs some tender loving care,
Mm,
then we might want to look at, oh, what colors also bring comfort?
mm,
What would I need to tend to myself, to allow myself to open my heart again?
mm. I love that.
Right. And so in that regard, sometimes, you literally might get some cotton wool and some glue and put it around it, right? I mean, there's nothing stopping you
Right.
from finding a way to express, but the base materials you would need would be the paint and the pastels.
Okay. I have a question, two questions. More human you maybe I probably already answered in my own head, but for those anyone out there that may be questioning, um, do I get, chalk pastels or oil pastel or whatever my heart is guided to?
I mean, you could do what your heart wants. I would do it as chalk
Okay.
because it's kind of weird, and it's something that I've learned rather than that I know, right?
Mhm.
But when we look at a block, it's usually hard and dry, and it's easier to shift when we add the water with the paint.
Mhm.
And sometimes an oil pastel can make a block feel harder to shift because it's heavier because of
Okay.
the nature of the oil in the pastel.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean because then you see what you do is okay, I've got this solid thing that's in my way because you'll feel it as an energy on a page, right? Just like,
Yeah.
I'll say to you, the prompt might be, what's the block? What color is it? How does it feel? Right?
Yeah.
And so you're actually going to be making marks of the feeling,
Yeah.
right? Now, let's say you did that with a black oil pastel. Now, when you put that
Mm,
on the paper, you can see, and when you're looking at it, it feels dense, it feels hard, it feels impenetrable. And that's how the block feels like for you. It's like it's impossible, I can't do anything. And then you might get your fingernail and you might scrape it off, right? So
mm.
you be creative in how to move through the block. So whatever materials you've got, we will essentially move with, because that's what's present in the day, right? And that's all we
Right.
can ever do, is respond to what's alive.
The other question
Yeah,
is, because you have several sheets of paper, and there's two different types of mediums here. Is there a
yeah,
specific type of paper that's better to be able to hold, you know,
yeah,
yes.
yes. Well, you can do a heavy cartridge paper,
Okay,
or you could do kind of loose sheets of watercolor paper. So
okay.
depending on how, because it is the heart chakra, okay, and of course the heart chakra goes out to the hands and goes down the
Hmm.
arms. So if we think about expressing the heart, we kind of want to be able to do that. So don't get a piece of A4 and then have to do that. You might say, actually, I want to get a big piece. What are the do you have A2 size in America? I don't know. What's it called? It's popular, isn't
Um,
it? The
I'm not
sizes.
sure. Like you can go to an art supply store, like a
Yeah,
Michael's here,
yeah, yeah,
and they have all different types of, like, they have things that you can get like this big.
yeah, yeah.
You can get, I tend to, like, for my pastel work,
Mm,
either work with 11 by 14 um or 9 by 12. Now for
yeah,
this, I feel like I want something bigger, um me
yeah,
personally, and maybe a couple sheets that are smaller just in case.
yeah.
But intuitively I'm kind of drawn to something larger,
Yeah,
because there's a story, a large story going on.
yes,
But I figured I'd ask some questions so that we can get clear.
yeah,
And when we talk it out, we can, everyone who's listening can kind of like, oh, you know what? I feel like this might be the right route, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. And we could, because we've got a limited amount of time, so we'll do a certain amount of time work in that time, but
yeah,
also we might do prompts that where people can do it on their own, and maybe they'll use a canvas for that, so they can do it in layers and build it up over time. We'll see
yeah.
what people's
Okay.
needs are.
I know I was tempted with a canvas as well.
I think if
Um,
I did the canvas, I would probably do a series of prompts that you could work on it on your own and develop it, right? So
okay.
that it would be a canvas that you would do over like several days rather than a couple of hours.
And on that note, uh, you know, I created the Zodiac Energy Empowerment Series journal. This is a really perfect opportunity that if you get the journal, if it doesn't come in time for you, you can get it all, like, worldwide, on Amazon for $22 or whatever the equivalent is in your currency. And this is a perfect way to keep notes and track of your journey on through the series and beyond that. And if something that you can't, like, you have prompts and you can't actually do it in that moment, because you have a different vision for it, you write that down in the journal, and will, um, it'll help you on your path. Because just because we're doing it in this now moment does not mean that you can't do it later and go deeper. Um, this is this is why we have, well, we have an entire lifetime, really, you know? But I'm just framing each energy week by week. And so I guarantee you, like, even though we're going to be working 12 weeks through these different energies, um, you know, you're gonna want a time to process this, integrate it. Because we're gonna do some incredible work in this series. And thank you so much, Sue. Like, I'm very,
Absolutely.
very excited for this class. And just to see how you work, because we haven't spent much time together, but just the fact that we connected, our souls have connected, and has generated this beautiful opportunity. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
It's
Oh,
going to be
and
fun.
And the class is you can get your tickets on my website through energyspeaksbycottrell.com. And if you're on Facebook, you can go to Energy Speaks and it'll be all over. And the class is 26 pounds, and the equivalent ish is about $33. So it's going to be actually done in pounds so that it's easier for everyone. Then I can make some some money for England too. And it's easier for you as well. But uh the other thing is if you're not sure what the Zodiac Energy Empowerment Series is, and you've just started listening to this podcast and you're captivated at this point, again, energyspeaksbycottrell.com has all of the information. There are two paths. The in-person path, which is in Tampa Bay area, and then your online path. And all classes that are online will be recorded through Zoom. All classes are on Zoom. And if you're getting this even like a year later, and you're like, oh man, we're like in 2025 now, you can still get this class and work through it. Um, so, and this is a series of going through the zodiac energies in an embodied way. Really, instead of being in our head about what we think a zodiac, like what Leo is, we're actually going to experience them through an activity. And we're going through a specific model that was created by Chris Witecki, that is really our creation story. It's what we see, as a being, through, how we are born. It is in our creation story, especially from the Torah or the Bible, and probably every single, belief system on the planet. I don't know a ton about other, religions, but this is something that is so connected to our rhythm and our cycles that it doesn't matter what religion you're a part of or what belief system. Um, this is something that, as a being, we go through this process all the time as we are creating. So if you have any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out, through the website, on my Facebook. Um, and Sue, how can they reach you?
They could probably reach me on Sue at Soul Artistry on Instagram, or an email link. If I put it up my website, I'm just in the process of creating soulartistry.co.uk.
Okay, brilliant. And again, on energyspeaksbycottrell.com, we have all of our practitioners, and Sue would be on our online practitioners. So all her links are on there as well. So if you didn't get to write that down, and I just want to say thank you so much, Sue.
Thank
This
you.
has been incredible, and we have so much more to create in this world.
We do indeed. Thank you.
And I and I want to say thank you all to our listeners and viewers. You know, you all are divine, beautiful souls, and um, I love you all. And this is Energy Speaks podcast, and for the Zodiac Energy Empowerment Series. Thank you.